Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hey there, this is Timmy Britt from Timmy Britt Studios, and you're listening to Skull Rock Podcast. Let's do this.
Aye, mateys, remember this as the day you sailed with the Skull Rock Podcast. Proceed at your own risk, and mark well me words, mateys. Dead men tell no tale.
Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's in theaters, and what's going on in this universe of entertainment. Hello, I am Aljon Go, one of your co-hosts and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culturist. And you can email me, Aljon, A-L-J-O-N, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, or on YouTube. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon, we screwed up. All right, I'm going to tear the Band-Aid off. There's no good way of saying it. We screwed up last week, folks. We put up episode 3 of the Eric Robison interview. So we're going to put up episode 2 of the Eric Robison interview this week. I'd like to think that each of the episodes is kind of a standalone. Don't you think, Aljon?
Well, yes. And when you say we screwed up, you mean I screwed up because I'm the one putting this stuff together.
I'm taking the bullet. I'm taking the bullet with you. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that.
We're the co-hosts of this out of control podcast, and when there's a screw up, we both share in that equally.
I think. What happens when these things happen, it's usually at around midnight, the night before we release a show. And I say that because oftentimes, I'll put together the show and I'll mislabel something and it just becomes like, oh, well, this is what it is. And I'll upload it and we'll have it. And then Dave will call me in the morning, when I'm coming into work, it's like, or message me. It's like, you put up the wrong show. I'm like, dadgummit.
Well, look, the bottom line, folks, is that when we do interviews, multi-part interviews with our guests, those are done usually several months before they actually air. And sometimes Aljon is on with the interview and we're recording it at the same time. Other times, Aljon may have a work-related issue or a family-related issue, and he can't be there for the interview. So I record the interview, right? Because a lot of the folks I'm talking to, right, Aljon, we interview people. A lot of them are animation professionals I've worked with and I know and stuff like that. And we just keep the show rolling along regardless of our individual schedules, right?
Well, right. And then, of course, there's also, there's also the time difference too, so what's convenient for your guests or for our guests is not necessarily always convenient for us. But the show continues. But having said that, Dave, I appreciate you kind of taking the bullet with me. But we always will aspire to do better. But
absolutely. I will tell you, folks, today we have episode 2 of the Eric Robson interview. And if you missed last week, well then hold off. Don't listen to last week because last week was part 3. So we dropped part 1, part 3, and now we're dropping part 2. We're just keeping everybody on their toes, Aljon.
You know what it is? It's the George Lucas of podcasts. We just happen to do the regular show, and then we'll drop a prequel in there every now and again, and we'll do it out of sync. But all of it, because of this non-linear storytelling, it's kind of like a Tarantino movie. You just kind of go back to the beginning and everything will be just fine.
That's it. I love it. I absolutely love it, Aljon. So I'm looking forward to having us air part 2. And I have to say again, Eric Robson is not only an incredible artistic talent, he's just an awesome, nice guy. I got another package from him this week.
Did you really?
I mean, yeah, I got this beautiful set of Disneyland 50th anniversary. Right? We're coming up on the 70th. So he did these 20 years ago. 50th anniversary prints. They're fantastic.
Very nice. Well, that's amazing. Well, great. I mean, once again, always great to have, his work. I've got frames for the work that I've gotten recently.
Yeah.
It's always great, and we love doing that. And once again, what a nicest, the nicest.
And he sent me a nice note. We exchanged texts and whatnot. He's hopefully going to be in Los Angeles in the beginning of the new year. So I'm hopeful to actually break bread with him in person. Nice.
Oh, cool. That's wonderful. Good.
Very good. So anyway, look, something, we have a great show ahead of us. Let's just move on. We've got listener emails. We've got, a shout out to the Sweep Spot, with Lynn Barron.
Yes.
And their 400th episode. So, let's go on.
Absolutely. And, well, gang, I tell you what, I don't know if we have any email week.
Yes.
We do?
Yes, I have two of them.
Okay, let's rock on here. Let's do this.
Skull Rock Podcast answers your email.
Well, something, I'm always getting nice notes from people all over the world, Aljon, and I know you get emails from people as well. But I got a nice note after last week's episode that said, you were very fair about Moana 2. It sounds somewhat better than expected, at least for watching good artistry. Listener Ed in Los Angeles. Well, I have to, I'm going to say it again. It is a beautiful movie. If you want to see it on a big screen, go to the theater and see it. It's a beautiful movie. I just don't think the story has much of a heart to it the way the first one did, Yeah. And that was my honest opinion. So, but again, I appreciate the comments. We got another one. It says, Dave and Aljon, I love your podcast. I especially enjoy your picks of the week segment and, of course, the interviews.
Okay.
Happy holidays to you both. Listener Rhonda in New York City.
Oh, well, isn't that nice? Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And folks, a couple sentences, Rhonda wrote us essentially 3 short sentences to tell us what she likes about the show. We want to hear from you. So absolutely send us a note. Wherever you are in the world listening to the Skull Rock Podcast, we appreciate it. And once again, I do want to give a shout out to Lynn Barron and the whole team at the Sweep Spot, which, by the way, Aljon, I have called the Sweet Spot, but it is the Sweet Spot. I mean, look, I think it's the Sweet Spot, It
is the Sweet Spot.
It's the Sweep.
Yes.
With a P, Sweep Spot.
Yeah, it's a sweet spot that's also the sweet spot. There
you go.
Whatever.
We're just gonna hammer this.
Well,
but they're celebrating their 400th episode in January, which is a real milestone. It's amazing. I hope we reach 400 episodes.
Yeah, right. I don't know.
The way we're going, we're going to skid right off the road.
Exactly. We're going to careen. All right, we're careening right off the side. And but congratulations, Lynn. I've known you for a while now, and you're just great. And I love your podcast. And obviously, a lot of people love your podcast. You've been around for 400 episodes. What a accomplishment! There's so many podcasts that come in. They pod fade after X, Y, and Z. We're one of the OGs, Lynn. We've been at it for a long time. I mean, I've been at it since 2009. With Sorcerer Radio. So it's we go way back, and we're also pals from D23. Going to the first D23 Expo. Really cool that Lynn's hit this milestone, and congratulations to a lot of the podcasters that are out there doing stuff. I know, Dave, you've been on so many different podcasts, but it's the Disney community, the fan community, that really is wonderful. It's great to see. I saw that Lou Mangello just got, I think, like a podcaster lifetime achievement award or something to that effect. I think
that's awesome.
I saw Lou Mongello get it, and Lou started out on Sorcerer Radio as a DJ a long, long time ago.
Wow.
And I feel like once again he's been at it for a long time. We're part of like the web 1.0 or 0.0 ground level of all this stuff kind of coming up, and it's great to see the fandom and these podcasters kind of change and morph and grow and continually just put out great content every week, like Lynn or Lou or what have you, or even Sorcerer Radio for so many years.
Aljon, I honestly view it as a wonderful community of people. The people who are fans of Disney. Forget about some of the bad stuff the company has done over the years. There's still this wonderful community of people who love the history of the company, love what Walt Disney started, way back when, and there's great people out there like Lou Mongello, who I traded emails with this past week because he's got a charity event for Make-A-Wish Foundation coming up in January. Oh, yeah. And so, he reached out and I sent him a bunch of signed books, for the charity auction. And there's other folks, Jim Hill we listen to. I've been on Jim Hill's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
The Grand Circle Tour podcast with Chris and Stan. There's so many great podcasts out there. I mean, I can't possibly mention them all, but we want to give them all shout outs, when we can, and certainly Lynn hitting a milestone of 400 episodes. It's just wild.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's great to see. And, congratulations. It's all we can do is support each other and this fandom. And I agree, Dave. I mean, this community is why we continue to do this podcast. Great. It's a great community to be part of. I'm very honored and have been for quite some time to help contribute to that in my small way. So, I'm just glad to be part of it, Dave. I'm glad to be part of it with you, Dave.
I'm glad to be part of it with you. This was a serendipitous get together, Aljon. This podcast started on just a couple of email exchanges between the two of us, and it's blossomed into this wonderful friendship. And we'll actually see each other in person. After what we're in our fifth year of this podcast. We'll actually see each other in person in February.
I can't believe it.
Which is going to be here before we know it.
It is. I mean, at the very end, we always talk about the animation, y'all, that's coming up, this expo here in Nashville, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. To meet some of our guests that I've only had met. At least a large number of them on Zoom calls, so it'll be nice.
I gotta say, I really want to see if Aljon, if you and I can organize some sort of Skull Rock party, either on the Thursday or the Friday night of the, Thursday before the expo starts or Friday night. I'd love to hear from our listeners in the area. If we host a party, are you interested in coming?
Well, that would be great.
That's all. Send us an email.
Yeah, let's figure that out, and I will put it out there to the community and figure something out. I think it'd be great to have something, and listen to the space. Maybe we'll have more details for a possible meetup of Skull Rock podcast listeners and animation fans. So.
I think we should do it. I think we absolutely should do it. Okay?
Awesome. Looking forward to it. And now it is time for our picks of the week. Dave, what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, I didn't watch nearly as much stuff as I normally do. I didn't get a chance to go out to the movie theater this week, but I did watch the Elton John Never Too Late documentary on Disney Plus. So that counts as a movie. All right.
Yes.
And Aljon, I've seen better documentaries with Elton John.
Oh, no.
I thought this one was okay. Not great. It was okay.
Okay.
So that's all I can say about it. I love his music. I do love the fact that he gives credit to his band. He gives credit to Bernie. Is it Topin?
Yeah.
Topin.
Yeah,
who wrote the lyrics for most of his hit songs, and I liked some of the narration that Elton did, but it just, I don't know, it didn't do anything for me like some of the other, Beatle documentaries that have been on Disney Plus. This one, I kind of give this one a B. You know what I mean? Kind of like it was not cobbled together with that kind of care and attention. It was just kind of like one of those, I don't know. It just, it didn't have the kind of quality that the previous stuff that was on Disney Plus. I mean, listen, the synopsis is Elton John looks back on his life in the early days of his 50-year career as he prepares for his final concert in North America at Dodger Stadium. Elton recounts his struggles and shares how he overcame them to become the icon he is today. It's got a 76 on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.2 on IMDb. I thought it was entertaining. It was okay, but it wasn't it wasn't what it could have been. Gotcha. Now, on the small screen, I did watch a dark comedy that dropped on Netflix. It's called No Good Deed, and it's got a killer cast. It stars Lisa Kudrow, Ray Romano, Luke Wilson, Dennis Leary, Linda Cardellini. Yeah, Cardellini. Thank you very much. I butcher people's last names. It's horrible. Three very different families compete to buy the same 1920s Spanish-style villa, which they believe will solve all their problems. This is a wonderfully funny, dark comedy with a great cast. I highly recommend it. It's only 6 episodes, and it's only 8 episodes, and it is on Netflix, so check that out. And then over on Paramount Plus, and you can also see this on Hulu, The Agency. And I think I mentioned this a little bit last week, but I want to mention it again because it is just a fantastic show. A covert CIA agent is ordered to abandon his undercover life and return to the London station. When the love he left behind reappears, romance reignites. This stars Michael Fassbender, Richard Gere, Catherine Waterston, Jeffrey Wright, who's just a great actor. I really enjoy anything he's in. He's a terrific actor. Jodie Turner-Smith. It's really a terrific cast of characters that revolve around Michael Fassbender's CIA agent, coming back from a deep undercover. I will tell you that each episode cost $12 million. I read that in the trades. Wow. Yeah. Now you look at that cast and you go, okay, maybe they spent $8 or $10 million on salaries. I don't know, but each episode is really terrifically done. It's cinematic. It's like watching a movie on screen. And I said this about Day of the Jackal with Eddie Redmayne, which is a similar quality. I mean, these are cinematic series, it's really something else. But there is, let's see, it's based on a book called The Bureau by Eric Rochant. And really incredibly well done. I highly recommend The Agency. Great acting. It's a good show. So that's what I've been watching, Aljon. What have you been watching? Well, like you, it's been a busy week, so not a whole lot, but I did see the latest Skeleton Crew on Disney Plus. I will tell you that it's still amazing to see. This, of course, is Jude Law and a group of kids. It's kind of a coming of age kind of Star Wars show that is infused with this coming of age story of these children, very much like the Goonies or Stranger Things. So it's what's the mystery of where these kids come from? Is it buried treasure on their planet? Is Jude Law a good guy or a bad guy? Is he trying to befriend these children to kind of lead them to the treasure? And so what I love about this show is the fact that
it takes a genre like pirate films and adventure kind of films and wraps it in Star Wars in a really cool way. And I really appreciate the storytelling. I like the fact that there's callbacks to Captain EO of all things, Dave. There's Captain EO callbacks. So you can only imagine that some of the creatures that were in Captain EO, which, by the way, was a film that was written by George Lucas and produced by George Lucas that Martin Scorsese ended up, I believe, doing for the Disney parks.
Right?
Directing for the Disney parks. Some of those creatures actually are referenced in a big way in Skeleton Crew, which is really cool. So there's a bunch of these really cool callbacks that I appreciate, and I like the storytelling so far. I think Jude Law is great, and there's a lot of mystery. So go out there, and if you haven't checked out Skeleton Crew, please check it out. I recommend it. And I did finally finish Alex Van Halen's book called Brothers. And I'll say that if you're a fan of Van Halen and looking for insights into the inner workings of the band during the David Lee Roth era, which is from about the mid 70s to about 1985, that's where they kind of set the mark, where Alex set the mark. I listened to the audiobook version of it where Alex's voice, he's the narrator of his own story. And I really appreciated that. So good stuff there. Of course, it's Christmas time here at the Go household. So I was checking out a bunch of holiday movies. It continues with a classic. This is The Family Stone. This is from 2005, Dave. It is about an uptight liberal businesswoman accompanies her boyfriend to his eccentric and outgoing family's annual Christmas celebration and finds that she's a fish out of water in the free-spirited way of life. The cast includes Dermot Mulroney as Everett Stone, Sarah Jessica Parker, Claire Danes, their sisters. You've got Diane Keaton, Rachel McAdams, Craig T. Nelson, Luke Wilson. Those are among the big stars. Elizabeth Racer, who I'm a big fan of from the Twilight series and from the Mystery House series. What was it? The Bly House from Netflix. She's great. But it's great to go back in time to 2005 to see what these actors looked like back then, because they were so young, Dave. It doesn't seem like long ago, but it is. It's 20 years ago practically. And it's a fun movie. It's fun because you have to suspend your disbelief about, this kooky family, and Sarah Jessica Parker is really wound up tight, and she is the kind of the girlfriend and of Dermot Mulroney, who comes in and is looking to maybe ask her to marry him. And all of a sudden, weird stuff happens, and Claire Danes is called in as Sarah Jessica Parker's sister. And I'm not going to spoil it here, but there's a weird thing that happens where, the family dynamic changes, and lo and behold, maybe the brothers end up swapping girlfriends. It's a strange... It's strange, Dave. Has this ever happened to you? Have you heard of these things happening in real life?
I've heard of these kinds of things, but something that's interesting. Dermot Mulroney is really terrific. He's just got a great presence on screen and generally a pretty good chemistry with whoever he's paired with.
I agree, and it's great. I mean, I like this film. I didn't think I was going to like it. I begrudgingly sit down and watch these things with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, my family loves The Family Stone." I don't know, and I sit down and I watch it, and it's just so I can relate because there's so many awkward family moments that are just absolutely cringy. There's this one scene in it, and it's really, really uncomfortable because Sarah Jessica just digs herself deeper and deeper into this kind of, this bohemian family, and they have a, certain lifestyle that's different from what she was coming up and brought into. And so that crazy family dynamic, and we can see a lot of that stuff kind of unraveling today as, we stand in this kind of polarizing world that we live in right now, and how family members interact with each other. And I think there's a lot of grace and understanding that can and should happen around the family during this time of year, where people can take advantage of the time they have with each other to heal and really listen, because, at the end of the day, your family, and you don't choose each other, but I think we can all learn to be better by being more empathetic to each other. So, hey,
Yes.
so better story. That was probably better explanation than the film itself, but it is pretty good. It's pretty darn good. So it was not a waste of time. So I give it some fair to Midland marks on that. That's pretty good. I do like Dermot Mulroney for sure, and Claire Danes and Sarah Jessica Parker. A Merry Scottish Christmas reunites Lacey Chabert and Scott Wolf. You remember those two were in Party of Five together back in the 90s, and they reunite for this holiday film, which was made last year, 2023. It follows estranged siblings Lindsay and Brad as they travel to Scotland at Christmas to reunite with their mother, Jo. And they find out that their mother ran away as royalty to America and had the two of them, and ended up coming back, and then they find out that they're Duke and Duchess, which is kind of interesting. They find out about the charm of this small Scotland town that...
Is this a Hallmark movie?
It's a Hallmark movie, Dave. It's a Hallmark movie that I found on Netflix. You know,
is Kristen going to the Hallmark convention again?
She probably should. This is a fun Hallmark movie, Dave. It's you know, but like I said, the stars of it, Lacey and Scott, are great. Obviously, they have great chemistry from them in Party of Five, so it's
awesome.
And I saw another animated film called The Star. The Star is from 2017. It is a CGI animated film. So I'll preface that. I found it on Netflix, and it's a Sony film, but it is about the retelling of the birth of Jesus during, of course, the way in a manger and all that good stuff from back in the day, but told under the lens of the donkey and the barnhouse animals, which I thought was great. There's a huge voice cast of people you know and love. Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead plays Bo. Keegan Michael Key plays Dave. Adie Bryant plays Ruth. Gina Rodriguez plays Mary. Zachary Levi as Joseph. Christopher Plummer as Herod. Vane Rames as Thaddeus. Gabriel Iglesias as Rufus, Kelly Clarkson as Leah, Anthony Anderson as Zach. My gosh, Chris Christopherson as Old Donkey. I mean, Kristen Chenoweth is in it. Mariah Carey, Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Tracy Morgan. There's a huge voice all-star list. And this is kind of Sony's label that does these type of inspirational films, shall I say. So I think it's great. We look at, what was it, the small one from Disney that kind of did that away in a manger kind of story. I think were you involved in that?
I didn't work on it, but the small one was done. It was directed by Don Bluth.
It was directed by Don Bluth. So this is part of the Don Bluth. That was part of the Don Bluth era. And I really enjoyed that film. And I think people that like that film are going to enjoy this one as well, because I like the animation in it. It is very much kind of that DreamWorks-esque, kind of animation style, which I like. I like the choices that they made. I really appreciated the animals, the animation, and the way they had humor injected into the story of, Jesus's birth, which is great. So, and a lot of great voice characters. I can tell you, man, it's a lot of fun. So if you're interested in a family fun romp, with barnyard animals, surrounding the story of Jesus' birth for Christmas, it's a poignant time for this story, and I enjoyed it a lot for family. The Star, you can watch it on Netflix.
Awesome.
And I also saw Nothing But a Good Time, Dave. Nothing But a Good Time is about the 80s rock hair metal scene. Now, you may have remembered when this book came out early for our podcast by Beanstalk, Richard Beanstalk, I believe. This book is one of my favorite books of the telling of the Sunset Strip, which is about the signing of Van Halen, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, and literally what happened in the late 70s and the rise of hair metal and the scene. That was literally, it was all about Motley Crue and Dokken and Poison and all those great bands that came from that era, and told by them in their voice, which I like. So I believe it's a 6-part episode documentary. The book is very good. The documentary is also very good. It does it justice. But I will say that the book is so much more in depth. So if you really want to go into it, the book is definitely the way to go. But this is a really good way to kind of relive those moments of hair metal and the Decade of Decadence, if you will. So if you really love it, it's on Paramount
if
Plus.
you want to relive it.
If you want to relive it. It's
Let's
like,
preface it, okay?
It's like Heavy Metal Parking Lot all over again. You know, Dave, I mean, you lived through it, the 80s. And, you know, I don't necessarily think you're a Whitesnake kind of a guy.
No, but I mean, it was the era of Twisted Sister and the New York Dolls.
That's right.
And, you know.
Oh, yeah, your neck of the woods for sure.
A lot of bands like that. I think I still have the debut New York Dolls album.
Well, the New York Dolls is a great story because they are part of that whole glam rock kind of Brit glam that came through. I mean, they're pretty much an offshoot of like T-Rex and the MC5 and those kind of bands that kind of really invigorated the New York scene. And you would have been part of that, Dave.
Hey, listen, I saw Twisted Sister at a club on Long Island before they really, you know, launched into stardom.
They talk about that. You know, they talk about that scene, and I think it's great because, you know, the West Coast and the East Coast there are different flavors of rock, you know, and Bon Jovi and the Bon Jovi crew, the Skid Rows that came from there, Cinderella, that was kind of like the New Jersey contingency. New Jersey really was the hub of that kind of style of music on the East Coast, whereas
but let's face it, Northern New Jersey is really like West New York.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know more than anybody, but you were part of that. I mean, you know, really from Bruce Springsteen and Billy Joel, and then you had the New York Dolls kind of more metamorphosized, and then you had those bands like Twisted Sister, and then later on
who I saw at Hammerheads in Levittown, New York.
They talk about that, Dave.
Hammerheads was a big club at the time. Yeah,
they talk about that.
I think I lost part of the hearing in one ear seeing Twisted Sister at that club.
Okay, so what are your initial thoughts of Twisted Sister when you saw them for the first time?
Man, they were so loud it was insanity. You know, it really was.
Because I've worked with JJ French, their guitar player, and you know Dee Snider too. I mean, very intelligent. People. You wouldn't think necessarily that people that play that kind of music are intellectuals by any stretch, but they really were. They really were kind of a smart man, hard rock band, and let's not forget even Kiss, Dave, back in the 70s. Coming up from that Long Island, New York area. So anyway, this is a fascinating take. If you want to relive those stories, or at least learn more about the Decade of Decadence of the 80s big hair metal era, you'll enjoy Nothing But a Good Time, streaming now. Well, that's what we've been watching, and I know you learned a little bit more about Dave and his musical tastes as it pertains to Twisted Sister. Never thought we'd see that on this podcast, but there you have it. Let us know about what you're watching, and maybe we'll check it out and read your comments in a future episode.
I'm always surprising everybody.
I'm surprised by you every week.
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
Oh my, Dave. Talk about Sony. I mean, they can't win for trying with this extended Spider-Man universe that they have. Kraven the Hunter bombs. $10 million to $12 million debut, slapped with a C+ in cinema score. That is kind of abysmal, and it really is sad because I really like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think he was amazing in Kick-Ass. He was amazing in The Avengers, and of course he comes in to star in this Sony's first ever rated R comic movie, Kraven the Hunter, which is part of Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery, Kraven the Hunter. And this is his kind of origin story, if you will, Dave.
You know, the trailer for Kraven the Hunter is really violent.
Yeah.
You know, and I gone to the movies this past weekend, I probably would have seen it, and I still may go see it anyway because I don't necessarily look at the box office, and for saying it's bombing, okay, maybe their expectations were higher. This is the penultimate weekend of shopping before Christmas hits. Next weekend, the weekend right before Christmas is the desperation shopping weekend. That's for people going, oh my gosh, Christmas is next Wednesday. I got to get my shopping done. I kind of attribute, and also the weather across the northern Midwest and New England. So I don't know. I'm gonna go probably see this, and I'll give you my honest opinion as I always do.
I can't wait. This movie was expected to open in third place with 10 to 12 million. Of course, it's one of the third worst opening weekends based on a Marvel comic book character along Elektra back in a day that scored $12.4 million adjusted for inflation. So I think it's unfair to Marvel to kind of put this alongside the rest of its cinematic universe films. So because this is not a Kevin Feige thing. I mean, this was kind of done Sony with their own group of storytellers. With, of course, Marvel is tangentially involved because it is their intellectual property. But Sony owns that whole kind of spider universe of characters. So Kraven definitely falls within those characters. And I'm like you, Dave. I'll be kind of cautiously optimistic about it. Even though it didn't perform well at the box office, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad film. So,
no, I think the box office across the board was a little soft. And again, there's a lot of cross currents there. As I mentioned, people are winding down the year. People are, doing, shopping. There's Christmas parties going on. There's, a lot of stuff happening out there, and the weather across, large sections of, listen, we have some friends down in, on the west coast of Florida, and they said it was freezing down there.
Can you believe it?
Yeah. So, all I will say about all of this is that let's see what happens going into the holiday season.
Well, let's. What I find really, really bad about this, Dave, is the fact that, Madam Web just was abysmal at the box office.
Yeah. Well, that was an awful movie.
It was awful, right?
Yeah.
They try to take out, certain aspects of Marvel out of that film, and it just was just a horrible film because of it. And I think this is another issue where if you don't have some kind of tie-in to the MCU or some kind of character to kind of bridge the gap, like some of these characters, like Doctor Strange, had other characters from different franchises come in. Yeah. I think you're going to have an issue there because what does Kraven mean? And will people spend the money to go to the theater to see something that they feel doesn't add to the Marvel experience? I mean, that's a blessing and a curse, right, Dave? Because the Marvel, the fact that a lot of the Marvel characters are tied together means that it means something. That's what the movie buying audience means. It's it doesn't matter who the characters are per se, but it's like a sequel from another sequel, because it all will tie in together at some point. With this movie, it's kind of off into, somewhere floating in space. And if it doesn't tie in, then people are not going to go necessarily see it because they feel like it doesn't add to their context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, look, all I'm going to say is Madam Web, I saw it in the theaters. It was an awful movie. I warned everybody, don't go to the theater to see that one. It was just terrible across the board.
Because of your review, Dave, I have yet to see it myself.
There you go. I'm glad. I'm absolutely glad to hear that.
Screen Rant reports, Dave, Sesame Street is looking for new distribution partner, as well as Warner Brothers opting not to renew the deal. This is big news, Dave. Sesame Street, of course, is part of the Children's Television Workshop there in New York. Has been known, of course, as a mainstay in children's television. I've been watching Sesame Street since I was a kid, and now that I have my own kids, they're watching Sesame Street. Of course, there's 3,000 episodes throughout 54 seasons and characters from the various Muppet movies and specials. Of course, those have been sectioned off now to Disney's Muppets. And of course, now separated the church and state, if you will, with Sesame Street with the Children's Television Workshop. Bert and Ernie, Oscar the Grouch, Big Bird, and so many others are now over there on that side with the National Children's Network. And HBO, which has been their home now for 6+ years. It's been around for a long time. This deal, they're dopes. They're done.
They're dopes. Yeah. All I can say is that they're dopes for doing this. And you know who should swoop in?
Disney.
Disney should swoop in.
Yes.
This is a property that should be distributed by Disney. This is family content. This is for children. And Disney owns the Muppets, for crying out loud.
I know.
They should
home.
do a distribution deal with Sesame Street. This is like a no-brainer to me.
Bring them home, Disney, please.
Yeah,
please
for God's
reunite
sakes.
Kermit the Frog and Big Bird. Please bring it home.
Really?
That's the whole point of me posting this, because I feel the Muppets and Jim Henson's creations need to all be together. They all need to be together. Fraggle Rock. All of it. Bring everything Muppets home to Disney, please.
Yes,
please do
without
it.
question. I mean, this is a great opportunity for Disney. They should just do it.
This content is so amazing, and the Muppets are more relevant today. And Sesame Street is more relevant today as we look and have people during the pandemic take inventory of their mental health. When you have Muppets like Elmo asking, "How are you today?" and then everybody's just outpouring and saying, "Thank you for caring and asking me how I feel." I mean, that resonates with people. It resonates with so many people, and adults too. They want to see this content together. I'd love for Disney, as you said, to come in and distribute this, because the Muppets mean so much to so many people, and the Sesame Street characters, of course, mean a lot to so many. So come on, Disney, do the right thing. You can do it. And you know what? It is a merchandise juggernaut.
Absolutely. I think they could probably put together a fantastic deal that's beneficial to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would love nothing more than to see the original characters like Big Bird, Burtner, Oscar, Cookie, Grover, Elmo, everybody just come home to Disney.
Yeah.
So
right.
let's see what happens.
We'll see.
All right.
Obituary roll call.
All right, Dave. This week, we remember Michael Cole, the actor on the Mod Squad. He dies at the age of 84. This is a Wisconsin native that starred with Peggy Lipton and Clarence William III on the show. Titled his 2018 memoir, "I Played the White Guy." Clearly, he had a sense of humor. He played Pete Cochran, one of the three young undercover cops that made up the Mod Squad in the 1968 to 1973 ABC series. He passed away this past Tuesday at the age of 84. Dave, do you have remembrances of Michael?
I watched this show when it was on television. I really liked it. He was the last surviving of the three actors.
Yeah.
Because you had Peggy Lipton and who was the guy that played Lincoln Hayes?
Clarence Williams III.
That's right. Yeah. So, Michael Cole is the last of the Mod Squad to leave us. But it was a terrific show. It was with Aaron Spelling. Michael Cole conveyed in several interviews that he thought it was a stupid idea and didn't want to do it, and eventually was convinced to do it. And it was a hit.
It's amazing.
And I think they did a Mod Squad movie reboot.
Yes.
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they do a Mod Squad, reboot of a TV show.
Might as well.
Because that's all Hollywood is doing now, is just reboots of stuff, because, you've got all these bean counters running the studios and nobody has a creative bone in their body to come up with anything original.
Oh, it wouldn't be the bad thing. It just depends on the execution, right? I mean, is it going to be like the reboot of Hawaii Five-0 or SWAT, which I watched for many seasons. I'll be honest.
I thought the reboot of Hawaii Five-0 was pretty good.
I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, like I said, I'm a fan of these kind of cop shows, and I wouldn't I would totally watch it. I mean, we found that The Equalizer. Can you believe it? Queen Latifah and The Equalizer. I never thought that that reboot would go very far, but I've been proved wrong. And why not? The Amazing Kreskin, the master of mind games, dies at the age of 89. Dave, is it bad of me to say I had no idea he was still around?
Yeah, I'm the same way. When this came across, I thought, geez, I thought he died like 20 years ago.
Sometimes I'll check. Sometimes I'll see these things pop into my feed, and I'll look to make sure that the date line is properly set, because I was like, I had no idea the Amazing Kreskin was still around. But of course, we remember the Amazing Kreskin because he was a regular on Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show and the Power of Positive Thinking. He was a renowned mentalist. He inspired the John Malkovich movie, which I believe also was called Mentalist. But Kreskin died as his home.
And there was a television show with Simon Baker, The Mentalist, which was a great show.
Yes, I did see that as well. So he died in Caldwell, New Jersey.
There you go.
And this is reported by The Hollywood. He goes, just what was Kreskin's talent? He says, quote, "I'm not a psychic or an occultist or fortune teller. I'm not a mind reader, medium, or hypnotist. There is nothing supernatural about anything to do." He explained 1991 Secret of the Amazing Kreskin book, one of 20 or so books I wrote. He goes, "I'm a scientist, a researcher in the field of suggestion and extrasensory perception. I perform what I discover." That's interesting, isn't it?
It really is,
I mean,
but yeah, I remember him seeing him a couple of times on the Carson show back in, I think it was the 80s.
Yeah. Look it up on YouTube.
When I actually stayed up and watched late night television, as far as I'm concerned, late night television is dead.
Yeah, I don't watch late night television. It's just not a thing for me. I watch it whenever I want. Now that you're streaming it, it's not appointment television for me. But I do remember the Amazing Kreskin, and once again, rest in peace. Wow. What a list this week. Anyway, gang, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our news of the week. Now, let's sit back and relax and check out Eric Robison. He's in the hot seat once again for part 2 of what was now part 3. I don't know what number it is.
All right, hold on a second. All right. Last week we aired part 3. This week we're airing part 2.
Okay.
I think they're standalones.
Yes.
But, you be the judge. And we promise we're going to do better in the future.
I promise I'll label them properly. Sit back and relax and check out Eric Robison, Imagineer and artist extraordinaire, right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Eric, welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be back.
So, Eric, we kind of left off. I think you got a very valuable lesson at the end of our last conversation from Marty Sklar, because he kind of, in a nice way, told you why that $2 million popcorn maker for Tomorrowland was never going to be made. And I'm imagining that sort of instilled in you sort of those kinds of questions that float around in all of our heads once we get into a job, where you sit there and you start looking through the lens of, what, we need to make sure we have a railing here because we don't want guests falling off the edge of this. You know what I mean? Like you start to have some peripheral vision on things that aren't necessarily your forte, but things you need to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it was a lesson in responsibility. And I never had a budget before, if you think about it, because I was a student and then I was at Mattel Toys as an intern. So I never really thought about money. And that's part of, now that I know for sure, my God, that is a huge part of a designer's responsibility, is to not let the budget limit you in the beginning of a concept or blue sky moment, but you definitely sooner or later have to be responsible for that project. I mean, it's a business and it's got to be built, and there's people giving you money, for God's sake. So yeah, I still didn't learn yet. That was just the first lesson. Just, I had a lot of failures, but they all turned into successes, but they were bad.
Now, did you keep that note that Marty gave you?
Nope, I don't have. I have about 35 notes from him.
But you don't have that first one in red Sharpie.
I don't have, but I have some beautiful notes from him. Godspeed, Eric, paint with Godspeed. I mean, all kinds of great motivational. He became like a dad to me. In fact, he met my dad. They were the same age. They got along great, and we really understood each other. And through our love of Herbie, and that comes later in the story. But Marty and I became super close.
Yeah, he was a terrific individual. I got to know him reasonably well over the years. But he said in that first note that you should go on to the Tokyo Disneyland, because that was at the beginning of the Tokyo Disneyland park being designed.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Star Tours Tokyo was being designed, and so my boss, Bob Kurzweil, he shook my hand. He says, Eric, I'm sad to see you leave my team at SQS. You only were there for a short while, but look at you. You're already graduating. You're going to be working with Tokyo Disneyland team. And congratulations, and have a good time as an Imagineer. And that was that.
So you moved from backstage at Disneyland up to Glendale to the Imagineering campus, right?
Yeah, and there was no office available for me. So Yoshi Akayama, who was the producer of TDL, Tokyo Disneyland, he says, you can share my office with me. And so I didn't have an office, but I was sitting there drawing robots in Yoshi's office. And in that corner pocket upstairs in 1401 was the Industrial Design Group, which was George McGinnis, Greg Wilsbach, my favorite guy, what's his name? I'm blanking out. Shoot. Sweetheart of a guy. They're all industrial designers, and they all went to Art Center. So I fit in perfect there.
Right.
I'll remember his name later. But anyway, George McGinnis was designing the Star Tours vehicle. Gil Kepler, fantastic artist. Like Sid Mead, the guy was amazing. He was painting the rendering for the Star Tours, and Greg Wilsbach and the others were doing robots. And so my assignment was to do droids, and they just said, Eric, just make up some droids. There's no rules here, just do a bunch of droids. So I started drawing, robots, and I wanted to be different because everything looked like a trash can shape. And I said, well, what if remember my biomechanical monsters I was doing in school?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was still in my head that robots could be like animals. So I did a bird droid sketch, and I thought, man, this is so cool. It had a propeller instead of wings. It had goggles instead of eyes. It was cool, man. I loved it. I still love the sketch. And that weekend, I went to Pasadena to C&H surplus store, junk store, bought a bunch of junk parts, and I went home and I made a model of it with super glue and junky parts, took it to work, put it on my desk, and then I rendered it. And so I was pretty humbled by the popcorn popper thing, so I just kind of stayed in my office and drew droids, So Yoshi and the team swung by and they said, wow, Eric, that's beautiful. What is it? It's a bird droid. And I said, here's how it works. It squats up and down like this, and the beak moves like this and moves its head, and it can be, And they said, wow, we're going to build it. Looks great. I said, what? Already? I get something built at Imagineering? So for me, I was super thrilled that one of my designs was going to be in a Disneyland park. And they took it over to the Mapo building, and those guys made it. They made a bird droid of my drawings.
Eric, explain Mapo for our listeners. So some of them may not know. Mapo's it was named after Mary Poppins.
Yeah, the Mary Poppins revenue that Walt made from that film, he created a building on the lot of WDI, and that building was the animatronic manufacturing, pretty much place to get all the pirates were done in there and all that.
The tiki birds.
Yeah, the tiki birds, all that cool stuff. So They took my bird droid drawings. I did a blueprint sketch. They took it over there, and the guys started building it like it was a piece of cake. I was like, wow, this is... So they called me up, come over and see your droid, if it's the way you like it. I was like, oh, man. So right off the bat, Dave,
that had to have been a boost to your confidence.
Just huge thrill for me.
Yeah.
Flash forward 10 years, they made a toy of it that you could buy in the Tokyo toy shop.
Is that right? I imagine you have one, right?
Well, I gave a lecture to a Disney organization back in the early 2000s, and some guy in the audience had one and he gave it to me.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool of him. But it was also like, wow, I never saw, because you couldn't get in America. It was only in Japan.
But you've been to Tokyo Disneyland, yes?
I have been. Yes, I have.
And did you see your audio animatronic, or was it gone by then?
No, yeah, he's still there.
Oh, he's still there. Okay.
They made two of them, and they're up there. When you walk through the queue line right before the main room, they're up above the rafters, like talking to each other. It's pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah. So that for me, all of a sudden, I was like, wow, okay, I can do this job. I understand it now. Have fun, but make it feasible, basically.
So you do that. What's your next project? What's the next thing they have you do for Tokyo Disneyland?
So then I had more droids to do because there was an elevator droid that had certain parameters. I had some other less fun industrial design assignments to do. And then that was finished. So they were going to go build, Star Tours was being finished. And so my next job was to go, Tony Baxter had started up Euro Disneyland, and Michael Morris, the guy that hired me, let me explain this. When you're in Imagineering and you're a show designer, you get passed around like an actor on movies. Once that movie's over, you go to the next movie.
Right.
And so when my assignment at Star Tours was done, then they assigned me over to see Discoveryland and Euro Disneyland. So I went over there. They did some Space Mountain concepts for Discoveryland. This is before it was still in concept. And Tim Delaney was the producer of that land. And so I went over there to the Chastain building, which is a whole nother building across the street and down a ways. And I walk in there, and wow, when you see the Euro Disneyland project and all the lands and all the producers and the artwork that was already going, the concepts, it was very impressive. Herbie Ryman was over there. It was just like Eddie Sato, and God, it was fantastic room, and the vibration, the creative vibration you got when you walked in there was like, yeah, this is going to be dynamite, a new country, a whole new Disneyland, whole new castle. Everything was different. But it was intimidating a little bit because it was some pretty great artwork was up on the wall. And Tim Delaney was standing in the middle of his area with a white smock on an easel, painting this beautiful painting concept. I was like, holy shit, who's that guy? And my friend said, that's your boss, your new boss. It's Tim Delaney's producer of Discoveryland. This painting was magenta and lavenders with flying zephyrs and Nautilus subs below. And I swear to God, they should have built that because it was really beautiful. I said, if that's Discoveryland, yeah, I want to work on that, It was very, very beautiful. And his earlier concepts for me were just outstanding and so fun to watch.
I'm curious when you go on to, because that's really when you worked on Tokyo Disneyland, that was already built more or less, and you were working on, the Star Tours attraction that was going in over there. But when you get onto a team like Euro Disneyland or Paris Disneyland, as it's now called, how long of a period of time were you on really doing blue sky paintings of all kinds of stuff that before it started to kind of boil down to this is what each land is going to be?
The thing that I loved about Imagineering was the blue sky phase. I can describe it wrong, I'm just suppose, but it's like a luxury as an artist, designer, idea person. It's a luxury because now when I work in concept, I'm working on something today. My deadline is tonight. It's for something in the south of China, and they want it for their meeting tomorrow. When I was in Imagineering, you had a couple of years to do drawings, paintings, concepts, change story, change direction, keep this, throw that away. It was a luxury. I've never been at a company since then that has that kind of budgetary power, but also Michael Eisner and Wells, they were big believers in this dream still, get to dream and come up with some great shit, and So to answer your question, you had some time. You
Yeah.
had some time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when the clapper came down, when Mickey Steinberg came into town and Jeff Rockless and these kind of guys, like, okay, we got to tighten up the ship a little bit here because, these management guys are coming in and they want stuff done. So let's.
And the iterations of each land, I mean, you're having meetings, you're showing it to the movers and shakers that are making the decisions, but essentially that's part of that sifting and boiling down process, right?
Well, I know the producers had to report to Tony, Marty, and later Mickey, of course, and of course Michael Eisner and Frank would come over. So those producers had to report. I was the low man on the totem pole. I was just a show designer then.
Right.
But I would see those producers go through, the song and dance presentations. I don't know how often it was. I want to say it was every few weeks or so, but it was pretty often. So they were being held accountable in that design process. Yeah. But when I worked on WestCOT and Port Long Beach, I mean, I remember having a lot of time. I mean, and then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, we got a presentation, kick ass. Let's finish this up, get this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you do have that latitude of being able to sort of blue sky it and have some fun for a little while, but then they start to clamp down and you start to get more of a focus as to what it's going to be.
Yeah. But also don't forget, you've got architects, writers, engineers, producers, and artists and designers. You got a lot of people that start narrowing the cone down. And by that time, Dave, you want to kind of have it done, you want to have your concept done.
Right.
Because you're like, okay, I don't know if I want to do 3 more renditions of, this retail part of WestCOT 10 more times. I mean, let's finish. Let's make a decision and finish it.
So talk about WestCOT for a second. Just tell our listeners what WestCOT was or was going to be.
The WestCOT, Western Epcot was the root of the phrase, but it wasn't to be Epcot. It was supposed to be a West Coast California park that was like, I'm going to say, a sister to the idea of Epcot, but it was an experimental community of tomorrow. It was just a myriad of it was huge. It was a gigantic undertaking of retail dining.
Was that going to be what California Adventure became, or was it something completely
California
different?
Adventure replaced the idea, but it's nothing like.
Yeah.
California Adventure is nothing like WestCOT was going to be.
Right.
But it was, very, very milked down to the California park. And I worked on both of them, by the way. So
yeah.
I left the company and they called me back to work on California concepts.
Now, when did you leave?
I was there for the Disney decade, basically. So I left when Frank Wells passed away, which was 95 and a half or so.
Yeah, it was Easter 95.
Yeah, okay, that's when I left. The month he died, April.
And why did you leave?
April Fool's Day.
Why'd you leave?
I had 2 reasons. I had a horrible personal life. I had some stuff I had to take care of personally, and I just needed to start my life over in every way I could, just to, I don't know how to explain it, but I moved. I just wanted to start over. Also, I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I had big dreams to be a filmmaker. Back then, music videos were just rocking. They were paying really good. They were fun to do. It was a way of making a film that was short. So I wanted to go into music videos for MTV. This is way down the line, by the way.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't want you to jump too far ahead. I'm just specifically like, first off, you left in 95, but you did work on Port of Long Beach?
Okay, here's what happened. I left in 95. 2 weeks later, they called me to come back and consult for them as a full-time consultant. So I never really left.
Okay.
In-house proper, I had left, but I left, and then Universal called me to work on their park, Superhero Island, and then Warner Brothers, and then the video game companies were kicking up. And then Imagineering called me back. Can you come back and work on this and that and this and that? So I just I stayed with Disney for another decade as a consultant.
So, yeah, and I don't want to jump too far ahead on this, but talk a little bit about Port of Long Beach, or what what really turned into Disney Seas, right?
Disney K. After I worked on, actually, before we leave Euro Disneyland subject, Tony Baxter put me in charge of La Belle et la Bête attraction for Euro Disneyland, which was to be a Beauty and the Beast, kind of like a tiki room composition, and it was in the round. And I was the art director for the project, and I was thrilled because the first time I was put in charge of something. I was no longer just a designer. Now I was actually directing, and I had my own team and everything. We built a beautiful white foam core model. I did gouache storyboards of the entire show. It was a huge hit, and Marty was thrilled. I was getting lots of accolades, and I was pretty happy. And guess what happens? Frank Wells, I was supposed to present to Mike and Frank in about 2 months. Wasn't ready yet. But they were on campus one day, and Marty calls me and says, Michael and Frank want to come over and see your Beauty and the Beast thing. I said, but it's not ready yet. And he said, oh, they're here right now. And I'm wearing board shorts and slippers, and it was summertime, so I was like dressed not for a present, whatever, wasn't ready. And he said, they're coming over right now, Eric. I said, holy shit, you're kidding me. So here they come, suits and ties, walked right into my presentation room. I'm sitting there with beach flip-flops, and Marty looks at me and he goes, holy, he looks and gives me that look like, Eric, wow. Like, you come to work like this? So anyway, he says, Eric, tell him about the project. So I had just learned French, spent 4 months doing a crash course in French. So I presented in French and English, and they were super happy with it. They interrupted me talking with each other. And I'm right in the middle of the first act, and Frank goes, hey, wait a minute. He turns to Michael and he goes, Michael, this should be a Broadway show. And I went, oh, no. And Michael goes, what do you mean? He says, this should be a Broadway show. Look at the way he staged it. This is perfect for Broadway. And I see Marty nodding his head like, yeah. And Michael goes, how could we do that? Can we do that? And Frank goes, of course we can do that. And Frank goes, Mike, we can do that. And the meeting was over. 2 years later, it's on Broadway.
That's right. Yeah.
Dude, yeah. That was my
in fact, I think Beauty and the Beast was the first Disney theatrical stage show, and then Lion King followed suit,
Yeah, so that's the day it became a Broadway stage show.
Yeah, wow.
And so my wife said, hey, do you think you're going to work on the Broadway show now? And I said, probably, I don't know, but they took all my stuff and they made it a Broadway show. That's what happened.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it kind of is, but it also was a bummer because that was my thing,
But did either one of them say anything about your attire, your beach attire?
No, they didn't say anything.
Yeah, there you go. Didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
And in fact, I'm surprised they were in suits and ties because I think they started dressing down coming over. Like, I know when they came over to Disney Animation, they would dress down.
Well, Frank would come without a tie, but Michael always had his ties, his Mickey ties. I remember that.
Yeah.
I love those guys. They were really fun. So that was the end of my Euro Disneyland, experience, and which was enjoyable. Tony Baxter was a great guy to work for, good leader. I went to Paris with him. First time I've ever been out of the country was with him, and I got to see Paris. So Disney gave me really some fun experiences, and so that was the end of that.
Well, before we leave, Paris Disneyland, I do want to ask you, and maybe you had involvement, I don't know, but their version of Tomorrowland, which is the sort of Jules Verne overlay.
Discoveryland, yeah.
Is that Discoveryland?
That's what I was working on before.
Okay, because I've always viewed that as like the Paris version of Tomorrowland. It was that steampunk kind of Jules Verne.
Yeah, exactly. So that was Tim Delaney's vision for that land.
Yeah.
And I had done some ideas that were non-steampunk, and he didn't care for them, which I understood later that he was looking for a different vision, but I still did some versions of it. And a funny story for you is I was in my office painting. I had done Space Mountain like an organic black crater with holes punched in the crater, the rock, and lights emanating from it. So it was very organic. It wasn't anything like what anybody was asking. So I was doing what I thought would be cool. But anyway, I was painting that, and an old man came up to my office door. He was watching me paint, and he goes, "Looks like you're having some fun in there." And I said, "Oh yeah, I love to paint, you know." And he goes, "You got a great sense of color, young man." And I said, "Well, thank you so much." I said, "My name's Eric." And he says, "My name's Herbie." Fucking
and that was the first time you met Herbie Ryman?
The first time I met him.
Wow. He had to have been in his 80s at that, 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, late 80s.
Late 80s, yeah. So he was in a red sports jacket, his gray silver hair, you know. I was like, and so my brain went, wait a minute, that's the guy's name that's on that painting in the lobby that I said I wanted to be like. There he is. He's right in front of me. Oh man, he said, "Come by my office sometime and talk. I'd love to talk to fellow artists," kind of thing. So we became friends from that day forward, and he gave me a lithograph, and just a jolly guy, really fun guy. Changed my life. He changed my life completely.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And what kind of a person was Herb Ryman?
He was. It depends what he was talking about. He was very flirtatious with the ladies, which was kind of funny because, like he was in his 80s, right? So, and then when he talked about Walt, he was always put his eyes down. He talked with a very serious. He told the Walt stories very, very seriously, you know. And this is what he wanted, and this is what he asked to do, and I did it, and so. He kind of had but then when he was just talking to you like a regular Joe, I mean, I would talk about paint with him and pencil versus charcoal versus acrylic versus, So I was always I wanted to know how he did what he did. I wanted to learn from him. I was just a student-teacher kind of relationship. And I didn't try to kiss his ass because I know a lot of people wanted to. So I just kind of took the fellow artist relationship. Instead of like, "Hey, can you do a sketch for my daughter?" So it's that shit happens when you're a Disney artist. So I just didn't. Right. So anyway, it was a good relationship, and I really loved him very much.
Did you get a sense that? I mean, what was your sense of Herb Ryman's relationship with Walt? Was it just employer-employee? Was it? Did he hold Walt in a at a higher level, or what was your thought?
Hard to tell for a young guy like me.
Yeah.
After he went to South America with Walt. Walt. That was Walt's favorite. His right-hand man when it came to anything visual important that he wanted to create to sell. I mean, it was Herbie, obviously. So I don't know, Dave. To answer that question, I was too young to even kind of perceive anything.
Yeah. Because the reason why I ask is because I've talked to like Walt Paraguay, and I heard Walt Paraguay telling some harsh stories and giving harsh opinions.
I've seen some Walt Paraguay videos, and I'm like, wow, settle down a little bit,
Yeah, I know.
Too much coffee, whatever. It's just, he was a little hard, I feel, but he's a hard guy. If you think about Walt Paraguay's life, he ran away.
I love his artwork, though.
Beautiful art.
I actually own a couple of pieces of his work.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I've got an original ballerina that he did. It's just gorgeous, So, but anyway, I was just curious.
Yeah. I don't know. So then I moved back over to 1401, I met Frank Armitage, who was my next office mate next door, became very close friends. And I have tons of Frank artwork that he gave me over the years. He helped me through a lot of personal things. And so I became very close with Frank. And we went to lunch every day and stuff like that. And then after that, I worked on, I have to look at my notes. Believe it or not, I had to make some notes. Go to Euro Disneyland.
Yeah, I mean, you know something.
Oh, MGM Studios.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, it's like we've all worked on hundreds and hundreds of projects. You start to lose track of stuff, you know, and time frames on some things, you know.
Yeah.
So you worked on the MGM Disney Studios.
Yeah, before that, Herbie had passed away, and which is coincidental to the story, but it's just something I wanted to say first before I tell you this. Marty had an idea to paint the hallways of Imagineering, and he wanted all the Disney artists, all the Imagineering artists to come down to the main hallway of Imagineering and paint some stuff on the wall. It was going to be called a paint out and graffiti hallway, basically. And so Peggy Van Pelt, who was in charge of it, called me up and said, Marty wanted me to call you and make sure you're going to be at the hallway painting thing. I said, oh, Peggy, I have a dentist appointment in the morning. I can't make it. And she goes, well, you come in after the dentist appointment, and he wants to make sure you have a piece on the wall. And I said, all right, sounds great. So I go to the dentist the next morning. I'm in a Mickey Mouse tank top. You know, I was like, it just must just be a paint out, you know, wear nice clothes. I get there, and everybody in Imagineering is in the hallway. All the walls are taken, all the spaces are taken, and they're almost done because I'm late. And so Peggy, she goes, Eric, come over here. I saved a space for you. Wait till you see where there was this gigantic space right where the cross section is of the other hallway.
Yeah, right. You're talking about the main hallway that comes down, and then you make a right where the steel staircase is above you.
Yeah.
The
hallway meets the center of the other hallway. The biggest hot spot, the first read of everything. And I said, why am I doing that space? And she goes, well, nobody wanted to paint that big. And I said, oh. So there was hardly any paint left. Only thing left was purples and blues and white. And I was like, holy shit, man, how am I going to pull this off? So I just started. And I said, what should I paint? Anybody have any ideas? And Peggy says, well, why don't you do a nice big castle or something? And so she handed me a picture of the Disneyland castle, and I started finger painting the sky with dioxazine purple, ultramarine, phthalocyanine blue, and just finger painting with my fists and arms, the whole background, just to fill up the space because it was so big a brush would never work. And so I wanted to cover the wall with this blues and purples, and it's dripping. It drips all the way down to the floor, and it makes a mess of the floor. It was a mistake. And everyone's like, Robison, what are you doing? And so I have paint all over my arms and hands. It's dripping on the floor. And I was like, I'm in trouble anyway. I might as well just finish this thing. And so I pulled the white out, and I just do the outline of the castle against the blue and the phthalocyanine. And the white starts to bleed and drip into the blue and kind of makes this ghostly influence, you know, very strange looking, but it's the castle still. So I threw a monorail in, some black trees, and then I took a toothbrush and splattered some lights into the trees. And at the very bottom, I wrote, for Herbie. Sorry, I cried.
No, these things are emotional, Eric.
Anyway, I turned around, and everybody was standing there watching me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty emotional.
Yeah. It's amazing. And by the way, I've seen that painting, and it's spectacular. And that whole hallway is spectacular.
Yeah, so Marty was standing there. And they all just started applauding. I didn't know what to do. So yeah, well, that day changed my life forever because I turned into a painter after that day. Everybody wanted me to paint on their projects. So I arrived at Imagineering, a designer. I left Imagineering as a painter. Wow. So that day changed my whole career. And to this day, all these paintings I did for the gallery and everything moving forward in my life was because of that blue castle painting.
Skull Rock Podcast is made possible by donations from listeners like you. We want to thank the following supporters: Michael Corbett, Christine R. Banas, Gold Tier members, Spencer Wright, Joshua Volkert, and Platinum Tier member Steve Munch. If you want to support this show, please click our link in the show notes. If you would like to advertise your event or business, please email aljon@skullrockpodcast.com. Thank you for listening and for your continued support of everything we do.
This is Disney historian Didier Gaz. You're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Hey guys, you ever seen that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back? You know that part? Where they're on the snow planet? With the walking thingies?
Skull Rock Podcast.
Maybe the kid's onto something.
Alrighty then. Wow, 3 episodes full, chock full of Eric Robison and his story. And once again, what an amazing, amazing talent, Dave.
He really is. I can't say enough nice things about Eric because he's such a wonderful human being. And I really do hope that I get to meet up with him and have lunch sometime in the new year when he comes to Los Angeles, because, again, just a great person. And I'd love to do something with him in the future.
100%. And you know what I love about this is that, you know, he chronicles a lot of his paintings and art on his Facebook page, which we've linked in our show notes. So please check out his community and people that he posts to, him going down the Walt Disney Imagineering offices and showing his kids his artwork in the hallway that he's talked about before, which is fascinating. And of course, his books are available as well. So, check out his 100 Mickeys or his 50 Donalds. You know, those books are great, and he's got great artwork. And I know that he oftentimes will do stuff for, you know, Disneyana fan clubs and stuff like that. So just be on the lookout for his art. When you find it, you know, snatch it up. It's great stuff. Absolutely great. All right, gang. Thank you once again for checking out Skull Rock Podcast. Don't forget, if you stumbled upon this show, to subscribe to us everywhere you find podcasts. All right. We're on every platform: Spotify, Apple, YouTube now. And follow us on all the social media channels. We talk about X and Blue Sky, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, of course, is where you can find us. So like us, and when we post that new content, click that bell for notifications every time we post new stuff. That way you can be the first to get there and listen to it. You can also leave us those 5-star reviews everywhere you find us, as well as comments on our YouTube page and our Facebook content. We really would appreciate it. Every little bit certainly helps out. You can follow me, of course, Aljon Go on Instagram, Aljon Rocks on Twitter and on Blue Sky. You can also check out my other podcast, Dining at Disney, where we post 2 shows every week. We talk about Disney parks and food with my wife, Kristen.
We're going into the mega food season.
We are, and hopefully we'll be able to get you, Dave, back in at the new year and talk more about Disney and food and all kinds of good stuff with you. So please check that out. All right, Dave, your turn.
All right. So, as we've mentioned before, you know, Aljon and I are going to be at the Animation Y'all Festival Expo, February 21st to the 23rd in Nashville, Tennessee. And I confirmed this week, by the way, that Bob Weiss, former president of Walt Disney Imagineering, is going to be there in person signing books along with me. I'll be there signing my books. So you're going to get Bob Weiss, who has his Imagineering book out this year. He's got his first debut novel, Ghost Dog, out. He's going to be signing copies at the Old Mill Press booth that's going to be at the Expo, and I'll be there too signing my books. So check it out. Mark your calendars for that. On my Sirius XM show, Tunes Behind the Tunes on Disney Hits channel 133 on Sirius XM. This month we're doing Beauty and the Beast Belle for December. So that's being played, you know, at different times throughout the month. Check that out on Sirius XM Disney Hits. The Old Mill Press website is back up, I hope, including my latest book, Find your happy place, the 8-step guide to boosting your creativity through a personal retreat. Aljon, I was signing copies this past weekend at Walt's Barn in Griffith Park, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I saw a whole bunch of great people, got some great feedback. The book has won a gold medal at the Fire Book Awards.
Yeah.
That's right.
Congrats.
A gold medal. I mean, come on. You know, if I got a gold medal for this book, this is a book you should be reading.
Yes.
Anyway, check it out, theoldmillpress.com, or wherever you buy your books, you can get it. And, of course, you can go to my personal website, davidbossert.com, which has all kinds of free content and stuff. So with that, Aljon, I'm going to say go out and have a fantastic week. Please be careful out there. People are distracted. They're in a rush. They're trying to get things done. It's the holiday season. You got to be defensive when you're driving. So just take your time wherever you're going. And we will see you back here next Monday for our holiday show. It's our last show of the year, okay? We will be here next Monday right here on the Skull Rock Podcast.